Gloria Hughes stood in her cozy kitchen, the late afternoon light casting a warm golden hue across the familiar countertops. The scent of fresh coffee filled the air, her quiet ritual, a comfort that had remained even as so much of her life had changed since her husband Harold passed 2 years ago. At 68, Gloria moved a little slower, but her mind was sharp and her instincts sharper. Still, love for her daughter had always been her soft spot. Stephanie sat at the table, perfectly put together in a tailored blazer, her eyes darting to the stack of documents in front of her. Next to her, Chase leaned back in the chair with the easy confidence that had always rubbed Gloria the wrong way. "It's just a formality, Gloria," he said with that salesman's smile. "A simple deed transfer, so we can refinance and finally pay off these renovation loans. You know how high interest rates are right now." Gloria hesitated, her pen hovering above the page. She'd worked hard her whole life, teaching public school for decades, saving every penny, paying off the house with Harold before he passed. Now, they wanted her to sign it over. Temporarily, they said, until the refinancing came through. Stephanie reached out, placing her manicured hand over Gloria's. "Mom, I promise. This is just to help us out. The bank won't approve us without assets. You'll still be living here. Nothing changes." Gloria studied her daughter's face. For a moment, she almost said no. But Stephanie's pleading eyes reminded her of the little girl who used to beg to stay up late and sleep in her parents' bed. And Chase, well, maybe he was rough around the edges, but Stephanie had chosen him. Maybe Gloria was just being overly cautious. With a sigh, Gloria signed the papers. A few seconds, a few swipes of ink, and the home she and Harold had built, brick by brick, memory by memory, was no longer in her name. "Thank you," Stephanie said quickly, tucking the papers away before Gloria could change her mind. "You're really helping us." Gloria forced a smile and poured herself a fresh cup of coffee. She had done her part. That's what family was for. Right? But just as Stephanie and Chase left, promising they'd handle the paperwork, Gloria's phone buzzed on the counter. A text message. Simple. Unassuming. But one that would change everything. "Gloria Hughes, this is the California State Lottery. Congratulations. Your claim of $12 million has been approved. Details to follow." She stared at the screen. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her phone, rereading the message. The scratch-off ticket she'd bought 3 weeks ago as a lark, the one she'd tucked into her desk drawer and almost forgotten, wasn't just a fun little dream. It was real. Her knees nearly buckled. She sat down slowly, setting the coffee cup aside before she dropped it. Her heart was racing. $12 million. Not a game. Not a fantasy. Her life had just changed. And no one knew. She leaned back in her chair, eyes wide, trying to take it in. 1,000 thoughts surged through her mind. What would she do with it? Where would she go? Who could she trust? The front door opened again. Stephanie popped her head in. "Oh, and just so you know, we'll be back first thing tomorrow. Chase wants to start measuring for a new entertainment center. You'll still have your room, obviously, but we might convert the dining room into a media lounge. Just keeping you in the loop." Gloria stared at her daughter. The woman smiled sweetly, oblivious to the storm rising behind her mother's calm expression. "Of course, dear," Gloria said softly. "I'm always happy to help." Stephanie waved and disappeared out the door. Gloria sat there, motionless, phone still in hand. They thought she had nothing. They had no idea. And for now, she wouldn't say a word. It happened just 3 days later. Gloria had barely gotten used to the idea of being a millionaire. The official documents from the California Lottery had arrived in a thick envelope, which she had hidden inside an old cookbook no one ever touched. She hadn't told a soul, not even Eli, her estranged son whom she hadn't spoken to in years. The money sat like a loaded gun in her mind, powerful, dangerous, and best-kept secret. For now, she was in the garden when it happened, her hands sunk in soil, tending to the azaleas Harold had planted years ago. The sun was warm on her back, the air thick with early spring scent. It should have been peaceful. But then came the door slam. Chase's heavy footsteps. Stephanie's clipped heels. Gloria turned, brushing her hands on her pants. "You two are early. I thought you weren't coming till after lunch." Stephanie didn't respond. She clutched a manila envelope in her hands, her expression tight. businesslike. Chase looked smug. Too smug. "Mom," Stephanie began, in a voice far too cold to be familial. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just come out with it." Gloria straightened slowly. Something in her chest tightened. Stephanie handed her the envelope. "We've decided it's time for you to move out." Silence. Gloria blinked, unable to comprehend the words. "Move out? What are you talking about?" Chase stepped forward, his arms folded. "The house is legally in our name now. We've reviewed our options, and after discussing it thoroughly, we've decided it's best if we use the space differently. We're planning to start a family soon, and honestly, we need the whole." "You want me gone?" Gloria asked, stunned. "It's nothing personal," Stephanie said too quickly. "We'll help you find a nice apartment. We've even printed some listings for you, affordable ones," Chase added, "and we'll give you 30 days. That's generous, considering the circumstances." Gloria's breath caught in her throat. She opened the envelope with shaking fingers. Inside was a formal eviction notice, already signed and notarized. A copy of the deed sat behind it. It was official. Binding. Done. Stephanie stepped closer, avoiding her mother's eyes. "We know this is hard, but you've had the house for years. You've done your part. Now it's time for us to build our future." Build a future on the bones of her past. "Is that what I am to you?" Gloria said softly. "An obstacle? An inconvenience?" "You said it was temporary," Stephanie snapped defensively. "We just realized it didn't make sense to switch it back. It's complicated with the bank." Chase talked to a lawyer. Gloria stared at her daughter, trying to recognize the girl she raised in the woman standing before her. "You didn't even talk to me first. You just decided." Chase shrugged. "It's legal. That's all that matters." For a long moment, Gloria said nothing. Her heart thundered in her chest. She wanted to scream, to hurl that envelope at them, to remind them who paid off this house with decades of hard work and sacrifice. But instead, she inhaled deeply. Then, slowly, Gloria nodded. "All right," Stephanie blinked. "What?" "You want me out," Gloria said, her voice steady now, calm. "Fine, I'll go." Chase smirked, clearly not expecting such an easy surrender. "I'll pack tonight," she added. "Won't be your problem anymore." She turned and walked past them, leaving the envelope in Chase's hand. Inside the house, she went straight to her room. She didn't cry. Not yet. She pulled out an old suitcase from the closet, opened her bottom drawer, and grabbed the envelope from the lottery board, her golden ticket still crisp, still untouched. She looked around the room one last time. The faded photos of her and Harold, the rocking chair she used to sit in with her children, the dresser she'd owned since she was 19. It was no longer hers, but what they had taken in ink and legalese, she would reclaim, piece by piece, brick by brick. They thought they were rid of her. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. The penthouse suite was sleek and modern, a far cry from the warm clutter of Gloria's old home. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in sunlight, casting reflections off polished surfaces and glass accents. It was the kind of place her daughter would call pretentious. That suited Gloria just fine. She had signed the lease under the name Margaret Lake, using a clean LLC her new attorney had set up. Not even her bank statements bore her real name. Anonymity was essential, for now. A week had passed since she was thrown out of her own home, and while the ache still lived in her bones, something else had awakened inside her. Resolve. They thought they'd broken her. In truth, they'd freed her. Sitting at the kitchen island with a cup of imported tea and her laptop, Gloria opened a secure file from Carmen Rios, the sharp, no-nonsense attorney she'd hired the moment the eviction papers were served. Carmen didn't ask questions when Gloria said, "I want everything on my daughter and son-in-law." She simply replied, "I'll have a private investigator on it by morning." And now, the first batch of findings had arrived. She clicked into the report. It was thicker than she expected. Subject: Chase Hammond outstanding debt, totaling $463,000 in personal loans, failed investments, and 2 maxed-out credit cards. Business: Hammond Home Ventures LLC was dissolved last year due to insolvency. Recent cash withdrawals totaling $18,000 within the past 60 days. Affair suspected with a woman named Roxy Devereaux, 29, hairstylist and aspiring influencer. Multiple sightings and hotel records confirm relationship dating back at least 8 months. Gloria leaned back, her chest tight with disgust. So this was the man her daughter defended so blindly? A man who couldn't manage a business to save his life, and who'd siphoned money from Stephanie while sleeping with someone young enough to be his niece. But it wasn't just the betrayal that stung, it was the strategy. Chase hadn't stolen her house on impulse. This was calculated. A man with mounting debts and a collapsing reputation had seen her home not as a family refuge, but as a solution. And Stephanie, had she known? Or was she just the fool? Gloria scrolled down. Subject: Stephanie Hammond. No personal debt beyond a shared mortgage and a small car loan. Real estate records indicate listing agent has already begun preparing the Hughes property for market. Current listing status: pre-market evaluation. Correspondence from Stephanie to agent includes statement: we expect to sell high. House has good bones and emotional pull. Mother is no longer a factor. Gloria's hand clenched into a fist. Mother is no longer a factor. The words sliced deeper than any legal document. Her daughter had erased her as casually as one deletes an old photo. The sale hadn't just been discussed. It was in motion. They were selling her home behind her back. And not once had Stephanie picked up the phone to offer an explanation, an apology, anything. And the worst part? Stephanie was smarter than this. Gloria had raised her to be careful, methodical, to plan her steps before leaping. Which meant she knew. She knew about Chase's money problems. She had to. Maybe she even knew about Roxy. But she'd made a choice. Gloria stood and crossed to the window, staring out at the city skyline, her tea forgotten. Below her, life bustled, people living, rushing, scheming. And here she stood, an old woman in a silk robe, watching it all from above like a ghost. No, she thought. Not a ghost. A storm cloud. She turned back to her laptop and typed a short message to Carmen. I want every transaction from the past 6 months. All communications with realtors. And find out who this Roxy really is. Then she opened a notebook and scribbled a name at the top. Roxy Devereaux. She circled it. Chase had secrets. Stephanie had plans. But Gloria had time, money, and nothing left to lose, and that made her dangerous. The knock on the penthouse door came late. Nearly 10 p.m. Gloria wasn't expecting anyone. She paused her streaming show, slid her silk slippers on and cautiously approached the door, remote in one hand, pepper spray in the other. Then she saw the figure through the peephole. Tall, disheveled, a familiar silhouette she hadn't seen in 5 years. She opened the door halfway. Eli? Her son gave a sheepish smile. Hey, Ma! Gloria's breath caught. She hadn't heard that voice in so long. It carried years of distance and unspoken pain. Eli Hughes, her youngest, the child she had once called her gentle soul. But somewhere along the way, things had fractured. After Harold's death, after the fights about money, about responsibility, about her favoring Stephanie. I didn't know where else to go, Eli said. A woman named Carmen called me, said you might want to talk. Gloria blinked. You're working with my lawyer? Not working, he said quickly, raising his hands. Just listening. She said you were in trouble, that Stephanie and Chase kicked you out. I didn't believe it. Not until I saw the property listing go live today. Gloria's eyes narrowed. They've already listed the house? He nodded. Stephanie's name is on it. Price tag's ridiculous. I recognize the photos in the listing. They didn't even change the curtains. Gloria stepped aside and let him in. The moment the door shut behind them, the tension thickened like fog. The distance between them wasn't just physical. It was years of silence, grief, and pride. Why are you really here, Eli? She asked. He sighed and sat down on the edge of the white leather couch. Because I was wrong, Ma. About a lot of things. About Stephanie, about Chase, about you, and I'm tired of watching from the sidelines while they stomp all over the one person who actually gave a damn about this family. Gloria studied him. His clothes were wrinkled. He smelled faintly of beer and wood smoke, like he'd been sleeping in his truck again. But his eyes were clear, earnest, No lies. I thought you didn't care, she said quietly. You left. You barely called. You didn't even come for your father's anniversary dinner. I know, Eli murmured. I was angry. I thought Stephanie had your ear. She always got the praise, the attention. But then I saw what she did to you. And Ma, that isn't just selfish, that's cold. Gloria looked away, suddenly overwhelmed. Her children, her greatest joy, her deepest disappointment. I don't want your pity, Eli, she said. Not offering pity, he said. I'm offering help. She arched an eyebrow. He smiled wryly. You didn't think I was just drifting out there, did you? I've been doing freelance tech security, background sweeps, digital forensics, that sort of thing. Chase, that idiot couldn't hide a file if his life depended on it. I already found deleted emails between him and the realtor. He told her he was liquidating the asset before the widow stirs up trouble. Gloria felt her blood go cold. He called me an asset? Eli nodded. Anne said you wouldn't be a factor for long, she clenched her fists. He's planning something, more than just the sale. Oh, he's desperate. I pulled bank records through a back door. He's got liens, creditors circling. The sale of your house? It's not a luxury move. It's survival. They're drowning. Gloria stared at her son, heart racing. Why are you helping me now? Because I finally see who the enemy is, he said simply. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The city lights shimmered behind the glass, a silent witness to their reunion. Then Gloria exhaled. All right. If you're in for real. No drama, no lectures. Eli gave a small laugh. Deal. And one more thing, she added. No one can know I have the lottery money. Not yet. Eli's eyes widened. Wait. You? Later, she said with a sly smile. For now, let's make a plan. If they want to sell my house, we're going to make sure the buyer knows what they're really buying. The next morning, Gloria returned to her old neighborhood for the first time since her eviction. She wore oversized sunglasses, a wide-brimmed hat, and a beige trench coat, half incognito, half dramatic flair. The penthouse had begun to feel like a war room. But here, in the quiet, tree-lined suburb where her life had unraveled, she felt like a ghost walking through her own past. She wasn't here to confront anyone. Not yet. She was here for Mrs. Ellison. Madeline Ellison had lived next door for 22 years, and though Gloria wouldn't call her a friend exactly, the woman had a mind like a steel trap and a tongue sharp enough to slice glass. She saw everything, heard everything, and more importantly, she loved to talk. Gloria knocked on the familiar green door. It opened within seconds. Well, I'll be damned, Mrs. Ellison breathed. Gloria Hughes, back from the dead. Gloria lifted her sunglasses. You got any of that lemon tea you used to serve when you were pretending not to listen through the hedges? Mrs. Ellison cracked a grin. You've got 5 minutes before my next episode of Murder and Merlot. Come in. Inside, the house smelled of lavender and powdered sugar. Gloria sat on the same doily-covered couch she'd rolled her eyes at for years. Tell me why you're skulking around dressed like a bargain bin spy, Madeline said, pouring the tea. I need information, Gloria replied, and I know you've got it. Oh, honey, I have everything. People assume when you're old, you're invisible. But you know what we are. Furniture with ears. Gloria smirked. Tell me about Stephanie and Chase. What's been going on since I left? Madeline lowered her voice. Well, your daughter's been parading around like she's the queen of Elm Street. New car. New clothes. Hosted some sort of wine brunch just last weekend, bragging about how they're upsizing soon. Said they got the house for practically nothing thanks to, quote, a family favor. Real classy. Gloria's jaw tightened. But that's not the juicy part, Madeline continued. There's a woman, young, flashy, loud. Shows up in a red Camaro at odd hours when Stephanie's not home. I saw her once with Chase in the driveway. They were fighting. Heated. Then she left in tears. Gloria leaned in. What did she look like? Tall, bleached hair, tight clothes like she's allergic to fabric. One of those faces that says, trouble with a capital T. Roxy, Gloria muttered. Oh, She's got a name? Madeline asked, eyebrows raised. That explains a lot. Anything else? Madeline tapped her long, manicured nails on the porcelain teacup. They had movers come last Tuesday, not for the house. Just some boxes. I think Chase was trying to sneak things out before the listing goes live. He looked nervous, pale. Gloria's eyes narrowed. Probably trying to liquidate assets before the bank gets wise. Then Madeline leaned closer. Gloria, don't trust them. Not even a little. I always thought Stephanie was sharp. But that husband of hers? He's dead in the eyes. You know the kind. Looks past you, not at you. Gloria nodded slowly. They think they've won. They think you're old and tired, Madeline corrected. That's what makes them stupid. Gloria stood, adjusting her coat. Thank you, Mads. You've always had good instincts. Damn right I do. But listen, this neighborhood, it has a long memory. You may be gone now, but a lot of folks remember who built that garden, who hosted the block parties, who helped them through the pandemic. People don't forget kindness, Gloria. Just give us a reason to remember. That struck her deep. As she stepped outside into the cool morning air, Gloria felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Leverage. Not just over Stephanie and Chase, but over their carefully crafted image. If the neighbors started whispering, if the mask cracked, Stephanie's whole facade would collapse. That suburban fantasy of upward mobility and domestic perfection? Gloria could shatter it with one carefully dropped truth, but she wasn't ready to drop the hammer yet. Not before she placed one final call to Carmen. Put the house on hold. Tell the realtor there's a legal dispute. Based on what? Carmen asked. Gloria smiled. Let's just say a very observant neighbor is ready to talk under oath. Gloria stood across the street from her old house, her breath catching in her throat. It hadn't changed, at least not yet. The white shutters were still slightly crooked from the storm 3 years ago. The hydrangeas she'd planted on her 60th birthday were blooming defiantly beneath the bay window. A child's tricycle sat in the driveway. Borrowed, maybe, left behind like so much else. But it no longer belonged to her. Or so they thought. She waited until twilight, when the last dog walker disappeared down the block and the windows across the street began to glow with lamplight. She crossed the street briskly, keys in hand, an old set she'd never turned in. Her hand trembled as she slid the spare into the back door's lock. To her surprise, it still turned. Inside, the air was thick with unfamiliar smells. Lavender plug-ins, vanilla-scented candles. Not her scent, not her home. She stood in the kitchen for a long moment. The walls had been repainted a cold gray. The cheery yellow she once loved was gone. So was the wooden spice rack Harold had built her for their 25th anniversary. In its place, a minimalist metal shelf holding trendy blends she didn't recognize. She moved like a ghost through each room, noting every erasure of her presence. Family photos replaced with stock prints. The reading nook turned into Chase's so-called whiskey lounge, and her grandmother's antique mirror removed entirely from the hallway wall. It hurt more than she expected, but when she reached the upstairs guest room, what used to be her sewing space, she froze. Inside were boxes. Dozens of them, labeled estate clearance. She stepped closer, heart hammering. They were filled with things from the attic, the closets, the basement, old letters, baby clothes, her wedding dress, stuffed unceremoniously into a plastic bin. Gloria's hands shook as she opened one labeled Photos, Misk. On top was a picture of her and Harold at the lake house, holding a sparkler between them on the 4th of July. His smile was wide, and her eyes were closed mid-laugh. She pressed it to her chest and inhaled sharply. They were going to throw this away. They were going to erase her whole life. A floorboard creaked downstairs. Gloria froze. Voices. Footsteps. She had miscalculated. Someone was home. Chase, you left the back door unlocked again. came Stephanie's voice, sharp as glass. "I didn't. Maybe it didn't latch," he replied, slurring slightly. From the sound of it, he was drunk. Gloria looked around in a panic. If they found her, there'd be yelling, accusations. Stephanie might even call the police, and yet part of her wanted them to find her. Part of her wanted to be seen, standing in this room full of memories, reclaiming what was rightfully hers. But this wasn't the time. She slipped into the hallway closet and quietly shut the door behind her. From the narrow crack in the door, she could see Chase staggering toward the kitchen, a bottle of bourbon dangling from his fingers. "Do you even know how much this listing means?" Stephanie snapped behind him. "If we don't close fast, the creditors come sniffing again." "We'll close," Chase said, half collapsing into a chair. "The place is practically sold already. No one gives a damn about the old woman anymore." Stephanie exhaled. "Don't say that. Just don't." Chase laughed bitterly. "She's probably rotting in a motel room somewhere. Alone." Gloria closed her eyes. "No," she thought. "I'm watching you. And I'm 10 steps ahead." Eventually, their voices faded. She slipped out, taking 3 boxes with her, ones they wouldn't notice missing right away. Her wedding dress, the photo albums, a bundle of Harold's handwritten recipes. Back at the penthouse, she laid everything out carefully. Each item was a stitch in the tapestry of her past and her future. Eli walked in and paused. "You went back?" She nodded. "Had to." "Are you okay?" "No," Gloria whispered, "but I will be." He stepped forward, lifted one of the photos. "What's next?" She smiled, slow and deliberate. "Next," she said, "we show them that the house they stole doesn't belong to them. It never did. Because a home isn't just walls and paint. It's memory. It's truth. And I'm about to bury them in it." On a breezy Thursday afternoon, Elmwood Lane was unusually busy. SUVs with perfectly clean tires lined the curb. Young couples and business casuals strolled hand in hand, eyeing the manicured front lawns. Inside Gloria's old house, a realtor adjusted the cuffs of his designer blazer and motioned to the potential buyers scattered around the open house. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, recently updated kitchen, he called out with trained enthusiasm. Walking distance to top-rated schools and in a neighborhood with very low turnover. A rare find. Stephanie stood near the fireplace, sipping from a wine glass filled with sparkling water, posing like she was already featured in Architectural Digest. She wore a cream blouse and high-waisted slacks, and her smile had all the warmth of a corporate headshot. Chase, hungover and silent, hovered by the island, pretending to review paperwork while checking his phone every few seconds. This open house was their shot, the last thread keeping their fragile plan together. They needed a quick sale. Without it, the unpaid debts, maxed out credit cards, and Chase's failed consulting firm would all come crashing down. But outside, just down the street, Gloria sat in her parked car, engine idling. She could see the sign, "Open House. Today only." How fitting, she thought. One afternoon to erase 40 years of her life. "Are you sure you want to do this today?" Eli asked gently from the passenger seat. "You could wait until the offer comes through. Hit them harder." Gloria shook her head, eyes still fixed on the house. "They started this in broad daylight. So will I." She stepped out of the car, adjusted her blazer, and walked toward her former home. Not as a victim, not as a broken woman, but as the storm they never saw coming. Inside, the realtor turned to greet the new guest, but the practiced smile froze on his face when he saw who it was. "Mrs. Hughes?" he asked, confused. Stephanie turned at the name. Her smile vanished. "You're not allowed to be here." Gloria tilted her head. "And you're not allowed to sell property under legal dispute. Yet here we are." Gasps rippled through the small crowd. The realtor blinked. I wasn't informed of any legal issues." "Of course not," Gloria replied smoothly, stepping into the living room like she still owned it. "But since the transfer of ownership is being challenged, and since fraud has been alleged," she let the words hang in the air like thunder. "I thought the public should be made aware." Stephanie's face flushed a dangerous red. "Get out!" Gloria ignored her, turning to the prospective buyers. "I'm Gloria Hughes. I lived in this house for over 35 years. It was signed over temporarily for tax reasons, not sold. But it was taken from me through coercion, and that's being reviewed in court. If you buy it, be warned. You may be buying a lawsuit, not a home." The room fell silent. One woman turned to her husband and muttered something. A young man near the staircase slipped out the front door. Another couple followed. Stephanie's voice trembled. "This is harassment. You're mentally unstable." "Oh, sweetheart," Gloria said with a smile. "You should see what I'm like when I am unstable." Chase stepped forward, finally speaking. "This isn't helping anyone. You've made your point. Leave." "No," Gloria said calmly, pulling out a folded legal document from her handbag. "This is a cease and desist letter prepared by my attorney. Any further attempts to sell this house without full disclosure will result in immediate legal action, including a public filing that names both of you." She dropped the paper on the kitchen counter with a satisfying slap. The realtor, now pale, cleared his throat. "I think we're going to end early today. Thank you, everyone, for coming." The buyers quietly filed out, some looking back with curiosity, others with thinly veiled sympathy. Stephanie stood frozen, mouth twitching, eyes glassy. Chase looked like he might vomit. Gloria gave one final glance around the room. "I just wanted to see the house one last time before it's mine again. You know, sentimental reasons." Then she turned and walked out, head held high. Back in the car, Eli grinned. That was honestly terrifying. Gloria exhaled deeply, the adrenaline still rushing through her veins. Good, that was just the opening act. The next morning, the front page of the local paper featured a bold headline: "Open house interrupted by legal owner, fraud alleged in family property dispute." Stephanie stared at the screen in disbelief, her coffee growing cold in her hand. The photo wasn't flattering. Gloria, holding a folded document and speaking with authority, while Chase stood in the background, looking small and shaken. "What the hell is this?" she hissed. Chase rubbed his eyes, clearly hungover. "It's just local noise. No one reads that crap." Stephanie threw the tablet onto the kitchen table. The buyers read it. 3 canceled their follow-up showings. "This is a disaster." Chase didn't respond. He was too busy scrolling through his phone, eyes flicking over notifications, but he wasn't checking for buyer updates. He was waiting for a message from her. From Kendra. He hadn't heard from her in days, and that silence was more ominous than anything Gloria had done so far. Across town, in a chic cafe shaded by ivy and wrought iron fencing, Gloria sat at a small table with Eli and a sharp-eyed woman in her late 30s wearing a charcoal suit and no-nonsense heels. Her name was Tessa Langford, private investigator. Gloria leaned in. "What do you have on Chase?" Tessa flipped open a folder and slid over a set of glossy surveillance photos. "Plenty. He's been having an affair for over a year with a woman named Kendra Bowers. Met her through a startup networking group. She's 27, calls herself an influencer investor hybrid, which apparently means she burns other people's money on overpriced skincare and tequila brand partnerships." Eli whistled low. "Charming," Tessa continued. "That's the least of it. Chase siphoned off over $200,000 from your daughter's joint account with him and funneled it into a crypto scheme with Kendra. It tanked. Now he owes the wrong people. Bad people." Gloria's jaw clenched. "And Stephanie doesn't know?" Tessa shook her head. "Not yet, but I've got bank statements, emails, and phone records. He also signed Kendra up as a silent partner in his company on paper, one that's filed bankruptcy twice." Gloria sat back, processing. "So he's not just a parasite, he's radioactive." Tessa smiled slightly. "And you're holding the detonator." Gloria looked down at the evidence. She thought of Stephanie, once a sweet, vibrant girl who used to sneak into her bed after nightmares. She remembered brushing her hair before school and helping her choose her wedding dress. The image of that same woman now, standing in her kitchen like a stranger, letting her husband rob her mother blind, it was almost unbearable. Almost. But what Gloria couldn't forgive wasn't just the betrayal, it was the arrogance. The assumption that she was too old, too soft, too slow to fight back. They had forgotten that before she was a mother, she had been a fighter. And before she was a widow, she had been a strategist. She hadn't survived life with Harold, a stubborn, salt-of-the-earth man who built his business from nothing without learning how to dig deep and strike smart. She picked up her phone and typed a brief text. "Stephanie, we need to talk. Just us. No Chase. This afternoon. I'll send the location." She pressed send before she could second-guess herself. Later that day, Stephanie arrived at a quiet wine bar just off the downtown square. Gloria was already seated, sipping white wine with the calm of a woman in control. "This feels like a trap," Stephanie muttered, sliding into the booth. "It's not," Gloria said. "It's a warning." Stephanie narrowed her eyes. "About what?" Gloria reached into her bag and slid a sleek manila folder across the table. Stephanie hesitated, then opened it. At first, her expression didn't change, just curiosity. But as she flipped each page, her face slowly fell. What is this?" she whispered. "Proof, bank transfers, phone logs, emails. From Chase to Kendra. From Chase to Cayman accounts. From Chase to your money." Stephanie looked like she'd been slapped. This can't be." "It is," Gloria said softly. "He's using you, and you've been helping him by hurting me." Tears welled in Stephanie's eyes. "I didn't know." "No," Gloria said. "You didn't care to know. That's different." Stephanie shut the folder. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to choose," Gloria replied, her voice calm but firm. "Him or the truth. Because if you don't walk away from him, this goes public. And when it does, you'll lose more than your reputation. You'll lose everything." Stephanie stared down at the table, silent. Gloria stood. "You have until tomorrow." As she walked away, she felt something shift. Not just in the room, but in the air around her. She had drawn the battle lines. And now, the final act was set to begin. Stephanie didn't sleep that night. She sat at the edge of the bed, knees drawn to her chest, watching Chase snore drunkenly beside her. He had come home late, reeking of whiskey and cologne she didn't recognize. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. She didn't check it. She didn't need to. She knew it was Kendra. The manila folder Gloria had given her lay open on her lap. Every page screamed betrayal. Bank transfers in Chase's name. Emails filled with lies and schemes. And worst of all, a smug photo of Kendra draped across the hood of the Porsche Stephanie had unknowingly financed. Gloria's words echoed in her head. "You didn't care to know." At 3:41 a.m., Stephanie slid out of bed, pulled a duffel from the closet, and began packing. By morning, Chase awoke to the sound of drawers slamming. "Babe?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "What's going on?" Stephanie didn't answer. She zipped the bag and hurled it onto the floor. "Steph, what the hell?" She turned, eyes bloodshot, expression like ice. "Get out," Chase blinked. "Wait, what?" "I said get out," she snapped, voice shaking with suppressed fury. "I know everything, Chase. Kendra, the stolen money, the crypto scam, the shell companies, all of it." His expression froze, a mask of guilt forming instantly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You used me. You used my mother," she hissed, her voice rising. "You tricked her into signing that house over so you could sell it and dig yourself out of debt, and I went along with it, thinking it was a family move. God, I was so stupid." Chase stood up, tone shifting to manipulation. "Look, Steph, we've had our rough patches, but I love you." "Save it," she said, throwing a wad of papers at him, the folder. "You love money. You love control. You don't love anyone." There was a tense silence. Then she said the one thing Chase couldn't afford to hear. "I've already spoken to my mother. I'm giving her the house back. And I'm turning over everything we did to her lawyers." He paled. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Chase lunged forward, voice desperate. "Do you realize what you've just done? You've ruined us." "No," Stephanie said, her voice low and resolute. "You ruined us. I'm just finally getting out of the rubble." He stood in stunned silence as she grabbed her bag, walked out the door, and didn't look back. The next day, Gloria stood in front of her house again, her house. This time flanked by 2 lawyers and a title clerk. The front lawn was empty. The open house signs were gone. And Stephanie stood next to her, solemn, dressed in plain clothes with no makeup, her eyes heavy with regret. A notary stamped the documents, the ink still drying when Gloria accepted the keys from Stephanie's shaking hand. "I know this doesn't fix everything," Stephanie whispered, "but I needed you to know I'm sorry for what we did, for not seeing him for who he was, for losing myself." Gloria looked at her daughter, not with rage or triumph, but with something much heavier, disappointment slowly giving way to sorrow. "I'm not ready to forgive you," she said softly, "but I'm willing to believe this is a start." Stephanie nodded, blinking back tears. "It is." The lawyers dispersed, and the notary left. For a moment, Gloria stood alone on the front steps of the home she'd once built from scratch with Harold. So many years, so many memories. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. Everything looked familiar but hollow, like someone had tried to replicate her life using a catalog. The walls were still the same shade of buttercream she'd picked out 5 years ago, but the warmth had been sucked out by sterile decor and cold intentions. It was time to breathe new life into it. That evening, Gloria sat on the back porch with Eli, sipping sweet tea, her eyes scanning the yard where her kids once played. The wind carried the scent of cut grass and lilacs. "I still can't believe she left him," Eli said. "You think she'll stick to it?" "She already has," Gloria replied. "She's staying in a hotel and meeting with a financial advisor." "I think she finally woke up," Eli nodded. "And what about the house? Back to life as usual?" Gloria smiled. "Oh no, I have something much better in mind." He raised an eyebrow. "I'm not just taking it back," she said. "I'm going to remake it. Reclaim it. This house won't just be a memory. It'll be a statement." Eli grinned. "Any statement in particular?" Gloria clinked her glass against his. "That I don't just survive betrayal. I build something better from its ashes." And just like that, the woman who was cast out returned not as a victim, but as a force. The foundation had shifted, and now, the final move was hers to make. 3 weeks later, a crowd gathered on the lawn of 42 Elmsworth Lane, whispering in curiosity and confusion. The for sale sign had returned, but this time it had a golden sticker slapped across it. "Public auction. Highest bidder wins. Saturday at noon." News had spread like wildfire. Rumors flew. The house belonged to a millionaire widow, or maybe a retired opera singer, or perhaps some eccentric real estate mogul testing the market. No one guessed the truth. Gloria stood in the master bedroom, calm and radiant in a tailored navy pantsuit. Her hair was swept into a sleek bun, and a subtle diamond pin sparkled on her collar, quiet elegance with a hint of steel. Eli adjusted his tie beside her, clearly nervous. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Absolutely," she said, checking her watch. "They'll be arriving any minute." "Even Chase?" "Especially Chase," she replied with a small, knowing smile. Downstairs, folding chairs lined the living room, and a local auctioneer stood near the fireplace, clipboard in hand. The rules were simple. Cash offers only. Highest bidder wins. But what no one knew, except Gloria and her lawyer, was that the house had a hidden clause embedded in its deed. One she'd reinstated quietly after reclaiming ownership. The winning bidder would gain possession, but only after meeting a specific condition: a public donation of $500,000 to a local nonprofit of Gloria's choice. If the funds weren't donated within 30 days, the sale would be nullified. In other words, no dirty money, no shady investors, and certainly no redemption for Chase. As the room filled, Gloria descended the staircase slowly, catching glimpses of familiar faces. Some neighbors, some strangers, a few reporters. And then Chase walked in, flanked by a woman with bleached blonde hair, tight red lips, and stilettos that clicked like nails on tile. Kendra. Gloria didn't flinch. She kept walking, like a queen surveying her court. Chase spotted her and raised his chin. "Gloria," he said smoothly, "didn't expect you to be here." "Of course not," she replied with an icy smile. "You never expect women to outplay you," he laughed hollowly. "I'm here to win, Gloria. You should have just taken the money and disappeared." "I did take the money," she said, leaning in. I just didn't disappear. Kendra leaned in toward Chase. She looks broke. I'm not worried. Gloria's lawyer stepped up to the front and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Before we begin the bidding, I must inform you of an addendum added to the property's legal framework. The winning bidder will be required, legally obligated, to make a $500,000 donation to the Silver Hope Foundation, a local organization supporting senior women facing homelessness. A murmur went through the crowd. Gloria stepped forward. It's the same nonprofit that helped me when I had nowhere to sleep after being evicted. Chase's face went red. What the hell is this? Kendra hissed. He turned to Gloria, seething. You think you're clever? I don't think it, she said. I know it. The auction began. A young couple started the bidding at $400,000. A real estate agent quickly countered with $425,000. Chase raised his hand defiantly. 500. Gloria tilted her head. He was gambling everything. 600, called the real estate agent. 750, Kendra barked, clinging to Chase's arm like a prize. The auctioneer looked stunned. Do I hear 8? 800, came the young couple, nervous but determined. 850, Chase snarled. Silence. The room held its breath. 850, going once, going twice. Then, Gloria raised her hand. 1 million, she said calmly. Chase spun. What? Cash? She added. No mortgage. And I already made the donation this morning. The auctioneer stuttered. Going once? Going twice? Sold! Applause broke out. Reporters snapped photos. Chase stood in stunned silence as Kendra peeled away from him. You told me she was broke, she hissed, then stomped away. Gloria turned to Chase one last time. I won the lottery, Chase. The day you kicked me out, I became a millionaire. You thought you were stealing my life. You were just making room for a better one. His mouth opened, closed. No words came. Stephanie stood near the back of the room, watching everything with tears in her eyes. But this time, they weren't tears of guilt. They were of pride. Gloria walked out the front door, holding the keys to her home once more, the sun shining down like a spotlight. This wasn't just revenge. This was resurrection.